republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Say a little prayer for our township. Lord, guide our new supervisors in the upcoming year and help them to have no falters in the township and be with Vi through her retirement. In your son's name, amen. Listen, I want to move things around a little bit for Miss Viola Canals. The reason being is this seems to be Vi's last year, and Vi has put in 42 years in the township and has dedicated pretty much her life to Milford Township. You can't hear me. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, this is for you, Vi, and this is from the citizens of Milford Township. And it's a plaque for all those years that you have put in. And I know for me, myself, you've been my rock, but you've been the rock of this township for 42 years.
Yep.
And I just want...
Tax collector for 57.
Tax collector for 57 years. There's got to be some kind of record here.
It is
So-
a state record.
Is it a state record?
Yes.
A state record.
And still going.
And still
And
going.
still going.
So I just want to let you know that for the
I'll hang
appreciation...
that in my house.
Excuse me?
I said, I'll hang that up in my house.
Oh,
Come visit me sometime.
of course I will.
See
Of
all
course.
my decorations.
I'll have plenty of time now, so it'll be good.
I'm
But
home almost every day.
also, the people of the township have given you these flowers because they knew it was Christmas and it kind of fits the Christmas occasion. And we all know how you love Christmas. So when you leave, you can take them with you. So, bye. Thank you very much, and I mean that. Thank you for your service. Okay, moving along on the agenda.
Can that be set to the side someplace so it's not blocking everything?
Yeah, I'll take it out.
Thank you.
I think you're in a fine
Yeah.
position. I'll put it in the office.
Good to see her here. Minutes from previous meeting have been read by the supervisors and accepted.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, he's not going to stay.
Treasurer's report.
He's taking that home.
After last meeting, I received $6.75 from write-in requests, $435.81 from state police fines, $300 from magisterial district
For
court,
everything.
$147 from real estate transfer tax, 28 cents
When you
from
open your
interest,
card, you'll see something. in it.
$350 from zoning permits, $1,974.94 from taxes, and $89.31 from unemployment compensation dividend, and I have provided a November 2019 budget update.
Thank you, Shahana.
You're welcome.
Roadmaster.
In the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple storms. We've had some trees knocked down the roads where we had to cut them up, clear them up, and we had to do some work on the loader. And we're ready for tonight's storm. We have a truck. He's out already. Just all loaded, ready to go. We'll be here for the night.
Thank you, Gary. Zoning.
4 zoning permits from November till current, 1 temporary sales for Christmas trees, 1 accessory use retaining wall, 2 occupancy permits to correct long-term multifamily, which wasn't allowed in the residential zone. They have converted them to 2 families, so now we have them conforming, and then 1 well permit for the month of November.
Okay. Public comment period number 1.
Oh, yes,
Oh, Don.
John Quick, obviously. There's a number of things under new business that I think deserve public input, and I would hope that public input be allowed for each one of those items.
Well, when we get to it, we pretty much let the public comment anyway.
Um,
We always have.
I'm just making a
I
statement.
thought there was something standing out, but like I said, we always allow public comment in here. I know there's 2 comment periods, but we allow comment periods on new business, old business, whatever. Yes, anybody else? No?
I have a question.
Yes, Rachel.
We had 2 hearings for the litigation, and the news reports, accurate or not, indicated that the reason that we had to have a second hearing was because our attorney hadn't turned in the appropriate documentation, and I'm wondering if we're going to be billed for our attorney's time for both of those events, given that there wasn't really need to have everything been done the first time.
I would say we're gonna get billed for both, and we're gonna end up paying for both, because the solicitor did show up. And from what I understand, he did have the documentation with him. It could have been done right then, is that correct?
Well, it was done that afternoon, but the record that you're referring to was the original transcript, which I sent to Township building. So I did come over, get the transcript, and forward it to the court that same afternoon. That was the record the judge was looking for, because he could not make a determination without reading the transcript as to whether additional testimony was necessary.
And so, if it had been turned in advance, we would have been able to have only 1 hearing and pay for only 1 appearance?
Yes, but the first appearance was a matter of minutes.
Okay.
And he did not allow the additional testimony, correct?
The additional testimony was not allowed.
Not allowed. Anybody else under public comment? No? Correspondence. Thank you, Rachel.
I got a correspondence from Milford Township Volunteer Fire Department. They thanked for the donation of the 2019 year. They used the donation to partially fund the purchase of their used backup ambulance, and they responded to 47 calls in Milford Township. This one is from Milford Fire Department and ambulance. They also explained how they used the 2018 donation disbursement. This correspondence is from the library. They are asking for a donation. Kylie Associates sent a calendar for season's greetings. This one is the Fall-Winter 2019 Upper Delaware newsletter. Happy holidays, greetings from MHE Consulting Engineers. This letter is from me as the Secretary of Milford Township Planning Board to the Board of Supervisors. In the Planning Board meeting on November 26, members of Planning Board voted to send this letter to you for appointing an alternate member for Planning Board. And they also asked to look at the expenses of Township that incurred for planners and consultants in the last 5 or 6 years, and provide adequate funding. This one is from the solicitor. It's about the 2020 proposed budget, and it's about hiring a community planning so that adequate funding is there. This one is from the solicitor. It's about the UDI application. It says UDI application would require a conditional use hearing in front of the Board of Supervisors for expansion of the lot coverage from 25% to the proposed 48%. This one is from the solicitor. It's about to advise that the preparation of the comprehensive plan shall include some basic elements, and he gave us 12 basic elements. This one is also from the solicitor. It's about an issue, he says, I believe is prevalent in Milford Township, and that is that priority should be given to the township residents prior to non-residents being allowed to speak. Please consider adopting an appropriate resolution in the near future so that the public is advised prior to meetings as to what will be expected of them regarding public participation. This correspondence is from PZACS. It's about PZACS conference information materials. Newly elected officials should attend conference and upcoming PZACS boot camp. This one is from Kylie Associates. It's about municipal engineering services. They said we would welcome your consideration of our firm as municipal engineer and to aid in the design and implementation of any municipal projects requiring engineering and surveying services. We look forward to hearing from you. This one is from Linda Hassan. It's the summary of county and local municipal tax revenue as of December 5, 2019. It's based on 2019 millage rates. This correspondence is from A+ On-Site Computer Repair. It's Merry Christmas to you and yours. May your days be filled with peace, hope, and joy this holiday season. This one is from PZAC's Grassroots Advocacy Network. It is the news for the week of December 2, 2019. This one is from RKR Hess. It's just an opportunity to introduce RKR Hess, a division of UTRS Inc., an engineering and information technology firm. This correspondence is from Penn State Extension. It's about spotted lanternfly posters and awareness. This one is from the solicitor. He said that he would like to be reappointed for the calendar year 2020. This one is a news release from Delaware Water Gap NRA. NPS announces reduced winter services and priority snow removal routes. And the last one is from Pike County Assessment Office. They sent total assessed value for the municipality for the 2020 tax year. That's it.
Thank you, Shauna.
You're welcome.
Old business. The appreciation of Viola, we had moved that forward, and what that was for the papers, is Viola, it's her last year. She put 42 years in. I thought it was 43, but it's 42 years in here. She has received a plaque and some flowers from the residents of Milford Township for the appreciation that she gave all these years in this service to these people here. Okay? Wanted you to know that. Okay, response to draft visitor use management plan.
It is, I handed it to somebody. Gary, do you have it? No? I think Penny has it.
Penny has
I
it?
handed it to somebody. The viewing letter.
What is it?
It's the letter that you asked us to write about.
It's a solicitor one, correct?
Yes.
I never saw it.
You're supposed to send it to you. Response for the.
Sponsor the Park Service. I never saw it.
Sorry, I forgot to write it. It's one of the files. Gary, you don't have it, right? Sorry.
Planning Commission, no,
I am looking.
budget,
I'm not seeing it.
fire department.
Did it go out already?
It didn't go out. They have to sign it
Nope.
first.
This one's the planning board.
The deadline was December 6th.
I don't have it either.
And we missed that December 6th meeting.
It wasn't a meeting, remember?
Yeah.
Right.
Does it snow that night?
But you had already approved sending it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She's saying this was a response.
So it's our letter or it's their letter back?
No, it's our letter.
It's our letter.
Oh, it's our
Oh,
letter.
I thought you sent that.
Yeah, I
I
thought.
thought you sent it.
No, I thought all of you would sign it and then I would send it.
Response date's too late now.
I would send it anyway, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
And I think there's a meeting tomorrow night.
I did not see it.
I don't see it either.
there's a meeting tomorrow night on the Soft Hill Bridge.
Yes, that's the,
Yeah, I think that's-
You must have a copy?
And then the day after
I
the
think I do
ordination.
have
Okay, well, if you can bring that up before the end of the meeting and then bring that back here.
All right.
All right, if we go, I think she's gonna go to executive session, and we'll do it at that time.
All right.
Okay? Okay. Okay, under new business, alternate member for the planning board. We've got you two because you're gonna be here. Alternate member. We
I
have
just,
members to choose from.
I just feel that we shouldn't appoint anybody until the judge makes a decision.
I'll second that.
Makes sense.
I would agree with that.
Mhm.
Do we know what the timetable for that is?
Whenever he decides to do it. The hearing was today. Could be tomorrow, could be a month from now. Who knows?
Did he tell Mr. McNaughton today, he said he would give a time frame? The judge said he would kind of let the attorneys know.
He's hoping to be able to do it before the reorganization, but he didn't make any guarantees.
Which is a week, a month.
January 6th is the reorganization.
Okay, so you're tabling this?
Yes.
Conditional use hearing, UGI.
You need to schedule a conditional use hearing for UGI,
Yeah,
for
we're
their
looking for approval for the.
lot coverage.
So we just need to come up with a hearing date on this.
Right.
Which would be,
And approval for.
Yeah, don't make it
expenditures
the
for
first meeting, make it the second meeting in January, I would believe.
Yeah, you don't have enough time to
No,
Yeah.
advertise.
it's gonna go into February.
Well, I'm just looking
Yeah.
at this, like, I want to be in on that.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, we have to, by the time we advertise by MPC, it's gonna fall into the February meeting. We just need approval to advertise for it.
Yeah, but you're gonna need a date to
Sean,
advertise it too.
I noticed as part of the correspondence, or as part of what was handed me earlier, that UGI requested an extension until January 28th. So,
February 3rd, February 17th are our next two supervisor meetings.
so we're gonna need an additional extension from UGI, or else the supervisors are gonna have to reject the application in January.
For the planning board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says here that, letter dated October 22nd, on behalf of UGI Utilities, we request a time extension until January 28, 2020. I don't know that that's ever been acted on, but we're gonna have to extend that a little further.
Yeah, they just obtained they reached out today and got a copy of the application to apply for the conditional use. So I'll send them an email tonight.
And if you would please remind them that they need to ask for a further extension.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it right now.
Thank you.
So are we gonna make a date on that, or are we going to let them make the extension first and then make
No,
the
you should
date?
schedule the hearing.
February 17th. Second.
Up to you.
Gives you enough time, February 17th? Okay.
That's the next meeting, that's the February meeting, correct?
It's the second February meeting.
Second February meeting.
I'll make a motion that we schedule the conditional use hearing for UGI for the February 17th meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, 2020 budget, everybody's got it in front of them, I believe. Any questions on this?
Yes. When was the budget hearing that's required?
Tonight.
Isn't that required to be a legally posted hearing?
It was advertised.
Is that-
It was advertised for tonight?
Yes. Pardon me, Don, while I wade through this paperwork. November 21st.
It was advertised for November 21st?
That's when it was advertised.
Should I read it?
What was the date it was advertised for?
December 16th at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Rachel?
Tons and tons. Let's start with the biggest one. On your original budget for this year that was passed for 2019, as this issue carries forward, you had a total expenditure approved of $503,000. But this draft budget, which has the 2019 budget with it, shows only $453,000. It's a $61,000 difference between the two budgets and for the same year. And that appears to come from two line items that are no longer listed on your budget report. One of them being your highway construction line item for $50,000, and the other being the expense for the foreign fire, which should correlate with the income, both of which don't show on the budget document that I was given from my records request here for the township. So, and both of those issues carry forward to your 2020 budget, where those two line items are entirely missing. Your line items you're looking for are 439 and 492, which lists here as interfund transfers, but doesn't have anything listed on the document. So the other problem with that, in your year-to-date expenses that are listed on your budget document, in the report that I was given from September, there was $78,000 spent in that line item, even though it had a $50,000 budget. But in your year-to-date expenses, it's not on here at all. So your year-end expenses are short the $78,000 just in that one line item that were spent according to the report that I was given in September, but don't show on here at all. So I'm thinking maybe there's some errors there, because I don't think that the township intends to eliminate their entire highway construction.
Because that $78,000 is liquid fuels money. That was spent on the paving.
Okay.
So
So what I'm saying
I don't know
is-
where it went on the budget, but
Right, it's not, it doesn't show on your
that's what it
document.
is. It's liquid fuels money.
And
What-
that's line item 439,
439, thank you.
439, and it's not here.
It's on here. Liquid fuels money's on there.
And also your foreign fire, which was budgeted at $11,000,
Right.
doesn't appear for your 2020
What's the
in
line
an
item for that,
expense.
Rachel?
That's 492.
Thank you. The one that's marked interfund transfers?
It is.
Okay.
And in the budget reports that I was given from September, there was extensive spending posted to other subcategories in that line item, and those are not showing in your year-end estimates either.
Rachel, the 492 line item that you mentioned, the foreign fire tax,
Yeah, in your previous budgets,
is that listed as 492?
yeah,
Okay.
in your previous years, it showed as transfer foreign fire insurance,
Right.
Yeah, that's what that is.
right?
Yeah,
But-
that would be the money you get from
Yeah.
It
from
shows
out-of-state
as both
insurance
the
companies
income
working, yeah.
and
Yeah,
the
it comes in, it
expense.
goes
Once
right
a
out.
year,
It's supposed
once
to
a year
match.
paid. Mhm.
Right, but it shows as income on your new budget, but it doesn't show as an expense,
Right.
which it has to do, right? So your expenses are also off by that $11,000 that aren't listed, that isn't listed there. Those are two of the largest questions that I had. I also have a question about your debt service expense. On your debt service, which is 471 and 472, which is new.
Rachel,
You have
if-
it broken into the two line items. There are some copies up here of the budget for folks.
With your permission, I'd like to interrupt. Can we get a response from the supervisors as what was going on with these items as you go through them?
The only thing I know is that I think she takes it from one place to the other, from QuickBooks, and then she does it, so it might not have gotten put back in there. And I apologize. Is that how you do it, right? It goes from.
Yes, since I actually deleted the highway construction because it comes from the PENDA. So it shouldn't be part of their budget. That's what I thought.
No.
No, it has to be part of the budget.
It has to be part of it.
Yeah, liquid fuel money has to be part of the income.
It's part of the income.
And then it goes out.
Yeah, it's money in, money out.
Money in and money out.
It has to be shown, the 79,000.
Yeah, whatever we had left from last year, plus this year's. We spent 78,000 of it.
And that would be
Still
for,
should be 50-some thousand left.
439.
it would be liquid fuel money.
That's liquid fuel money. Well, the
439 is
expenditures,
the expense. That's the expense line item.
And the revenue number, Rachel, for that would have been what in September?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, because the reason I
State
asked,
fuel perhaps?
I'm looking at 392,
392.35?
I'm looking at 392.35, and the 2020 budget does include $64,005.61.
That's what's left of it.
Yeah, so it's showing on the income side, but it's
Right.
not showing on the expense side, which means your expenses are short by this, at least the $61,000 that should be listed and isn't.
So that's 39235.
Which $61,000 in a budget this size is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Can we, do you have more, what are you planning to do to correct the errors? You're gonna make modifications to the budget?
Modifications to the budget.
Okay, so I'm guessing that, do you want to act line item by line item, or do you want me to ask about the next?
Go to the next one.
Okay, so I'm just hitting on things that I see as major, because I have a few pages of questions, but I'm just gonna hit on the major ones right now. So debt, which is 471.00 and 472.00 now. It used to be just one line item. Your budget for 2019 was $14,255.
Right.
But your year-end estimate is $24,782. So I'm guessing that we borrowed some money. We have a debt that we're paying, right? So looking at your 2020 budget, which is $14,255, if you incurred a new debt that caused you to spend $24,000 this year, how are we budgeting only $14,000 next year?
Should be the same budget.
It should be which?
It should be $24,782.
What we spent. So that's short another $10,000.
Yeah, that should be $24,000 because that's a monthly payment on the backhoe.
Okay.
So that's short $10,000 now. That should be $24,782. That's what that should be, the same as it was last year.
So,
But it's gotta be paid off eventually.
Well, yeah, but it's not this year or next year. I think it's, yeah, it's 2 more
I think
years.
we have
I think you have 4 years,
I
right?
think we have a 4-year loan on that, we just bought it last year.
okay, so I'm sure you're quickly realizing that just these shortfalls mean that this budget doesn't balance either. And you appeared to have a $14,000 surplus, but there's, we're at now $71,000 that you're short in expenses, so that's a pretty big shortfall instead. Nowhere on this budget document does it have cash positions to talk about where the cash position is of the township estimated for December 31st, or even where it was on January 1st of this year versus where it is now, to see if any of that money can be incorporated.
This is the same budget that is always put out to the public.
I'm aware. But what I'm saying is if you're running a deficit budget, it helps to
We'll have
show
raise that.
where you're going to, well, that's not what Milford Township has done in the past. They've often dipped into reserves. But nowhere on here does it say how much the reserve is to be able to make a determination whether that, and how that would work or not work, right? So those are just a couple of really, big line items that I had questions on, but that's not the only line item where your spending for 2019 was a lot greater than your budget, but your budget for 2020 is only what it was for 2019.
I think some things that we looked at and said we weren't gonna be spending that much next year, it was like all the work that we did on the building, that wasn't,
Of course.
but we still pulled it over the same amount of 10,000, but I don't think we're gonna spend any money in that, so
Okay, great.
there'll be leftovers there.
Are there any other line items that you can think of that?
What I did do, we did readjust down the taxes, because I think we had way too ambitious.
Based on what you actually collected this
Well,
year,
we went
yes?
and looked at the book, the book, we should have looked at the book, they should have looked at the book, and I think they were thinking that there was gonna be a lot more, and it wasn't, so that's.
The tax transfer last year was at $50,000. Should have never been at $50,000. It should have been $25,000 or $20,000. Should have been more realistic, should never have been on there.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with her, I just got called to look at that and I just went, oh my God, how can you do that? We were looking at that the last meeting, and I went, oh my God, because you can't do that, you know. After
And
you do
I thought
50,000,
that that
you
was
don't.
actually the actual money when they started with the budget last year, that was what they actually collected. I didn't realize that that had been projected higher, so that's, but I found the book.
Okay.
And I left it for 4% because we have 96% collection rate. So I left the 4% behind because I think that's 305 or something like that. That we actually collect. Left that short.
Okay, do you have any other line items that you know offhand? I know I had a question about line item 363.51, which is income under state contract. For your year-end estimate, it says 0, but the budget for 2020 is $6,200. So is that just an error in the year-end estimate? Is that money going to be collected? And if it's not going to be collected, then why are we budgeting that as income for next year? That's 363.51.
Is that the money from?
That's your snow maintenance, isn't it?
Here's that
Yeah,
fire
we did.
insurance money right there.
Yeah.
That's from the state, that's the state money from Malibu and Bennett. That money is pretty much normal.
360, she's asking about 363.5.
Isn't that your state money?
Isn't that your snow plowing?
Yeah, it's still money. For Bennett Avenue and Malibu. I know at the last meeting, when you presented this, I looked at it, the only thing that I caught my eye.
Yeah, the state contract money is the money for Bennett Avenue and Fire Tower Road.
So our year-end estimate is we're not going to get any of that money?
We got it already.
Okay, so the year-end estimate is where the error is.
Yeah, it should be yesterday because we've already got that check.
Okay. And I'm assuming that there's some other expenses in your year-end estimates that are like that, that you intend to actually spend the money.
Planning consultant,
For example, the fire departments, which the year-end estimate shows as 0, but I'm sure that's not the intent
I
of the
think they
board.
made the check.
Yeah.
What line?
That
item?
foreign fire money, Rachel, if you go back and look at 355130, there's your foreign fire insurance.
Right, that's the
11,000.
income side of it, but there's a correlating line item for the
Right where it
expense,
wasn't spent.
and that's missing.
Right, but that's where it's
Right.
coming in.
So you're showing the income, but then you're not showing the expense, which means your expenses are short.
Right.
What's fire fund 17,000? 411.92.
That's our donation, isn't it?
17,000 donation to Milford Fire Company.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a donation to the Milford Fire Department.
And 412 is to the ambulance in Westfall.
Well, 412.92 is Milford ambulance, and
Correct.
412.93 is Westfall.
Right,
And
4,500.
they're not shown on the year-end estimate either.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying, is that they don't show there, which
But they're shown
is just an
over
error in
budget.
the year-end estimate.
Mhm.
Which, you know, I mean, the year-end estimate isn't what you're focused on, but when you look at what your total expenses are, you compare that for what you think your expenses are gonna be next year. So if it's short, then it gives you an unrealistic picture of what you're gonna be spending next year, right? Does that make sense, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Storm sewer, storm drainage
What
is
number?
budgeted at 0. Let me see, that is 436. So there was only $1,000 budget there before, but now it's down to 0. So that's a minor change.
Shouldn't that be up in the public works and the highway?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not above-
Absolutely.
Yeah, that should be up here.
I think as categories got added, they just got added in whatever order they're in, yeah. QuickBooks usually defaults to putting them in numeric order. This isn't entirely in numeric order, but.
Mhm.
So I see that you reallocated money from highway labor to highway machines labor in how you spent the money this year and in how you budgeted for it for next year. Can you talk about that? That's a $30,000 expense this year, it's a $30,000 budget for next year in highway machines labor. It was never budgeted that way in the past. So is that something you can talk about, why that change is happening and what that means?
Isn't this one snowplows? I don't know.
That's Gary's department.
I don't know where she come up with that, truthfully. It should all be under highway labor. Instead of it splitting itself up like that. That's where
Payroll software reports it that way.
software is.
We have a new payroll software. So when the employees clock in, sometimes it goes up the highway machines labor.
Because they're running a machine,
Right.
Yeah.
so it's actually putting their labor towards the machine. And what it does, and I'm not commenting a lot on this because this is their budget, but I will say one thing. Maintenance would be broken down even more if I had it my way, and the reason why is I came from that. Highway machine labor means that there's a man attached to that. There's actually a rate for that, okay? So what happens is if you, per se, dig up a water pipe in Milford, and you were gonna charge them for the water pipe, you would go back into the computer, and it would tell you exactly how many hours the man spent there, and how much he was worth with the machine being worth that value. That's what that would do. Now, I don't know if that's really transferred over here, it sounds like it.
Yeah, it is, but she
But
budgeted
that's-
at 81 and she had 92 technically for the two there. So,
It's just a breakdown.
it is just-
It's the way it's breaking it down.
yeah.
Those I think are the biggest things that I had, on my list. I do, on the income side, I wonder, since especially how short this budget is now with correcting the expense issues, on line 310, real estate transfer tax, I noted that 2019 was the lowest of the last 3 years at $34,846. So why would we decrease the 2020 below the 2017 low of 35,000 all the way down to 20,000?
Actually, when I saw that, I thought it was a good idea, and you know why? Because then you got a little extra money to play with that you did not budget for. There's an expense that would cover something, God forbid something did happen out there. In other words, okay, you budget 25,000 for a transfer tax.
Yeah.
Now, what theoretically could happen is if the economy went in the toilet and you didn't get it, you didn't count on it that much. And the state really doesn't want you to lean on that tax a lot because that tax goes up and down with the economy and however the economy goes. So if you did get, let's say, the Santos property sold and they got $200,000, you couldn't count on that money anyway, okay, because you didn't budget for it. But you would have a little bit extra there to play with. God forbid a road washed out, or you got some kind of hurricane or a tornado, and you had to hire crews to come in here, you had something to fall back on. Now, if you had budgeted and said, hey, we're gonna sell that land, they're gonna sell that land, we're gonna have $200,000 in transfer fees. Well, you just budgeted for it, so now you got nothing to fall back on, God forbid something did happen. It's a way of safeguarding just a little bit. Now, $10,000 is what you're talking about, really, realistically. We don't know what the economy's gonna be next year. I don't think anybody does. Last meeting, I just looked at it and went, oh my God, this $50,000 to me is a lot of money for transfer tax, for breaking down in a budget that you don't know really what's gonna happen out there. Like I said, to me, that was missed last year. That was missed. That should have been lowered.
And I understand what you're saying, Gary, and that makes sense, especially in such a big boom, but what I'm asking you is, you have a shortfall now to make up here
To
of,
readjust it
you
up
know,
to make them. to make
of
it
over
balance.
50,000, that you have to figure out where that 50,000
Money's gonna come
is
from.
gonna come from. So if 10 comes from putting in a realistic budget number in that area, that doesn't give you a windfall number, but gives you based on a reasonable track record, like what the township usually does for snow and ice labor, then that would make sense. I mean, I'm not saying to up that number to something unrealistic like $200,000, but just to put it based on the 3-year track record or even longer. I only had the 3-year available, so that's where my number came from. Why would we go below the 2017, low?
$14,000.
I have a question on the
Well,
transfer.
she put 25 for transfer, didn't she?
Oh, she did. I thought
20.
she
20?
Yeah, I have a question on
I-
the transfer tax. The transfer tax is broken down
Better not
into
tell us.
2 line items.
Sure, yeah.
Why is it broken down into 2 line items? One is real estate transfer tax, the other is real estate transfer tax other.
Well, I had that question about 7 different places in this budget where we have new line items in the category that say other. That's not the only line item like that, but there are several other places where we have a new line item that is an other subcategory.
No, when any subcategory is not picked, it goes to other, that happens. Always a category has to be picked, but if somebody enters it and he or she doesn't pick the category, then it goes into other automatically.
So the real estate transfer taxes between January and the end of October was
$34,000.
846.46.
That's the total.
So that kind of makes me ask the question, who's entering it? We have more than one person entering it? Entering the income or expense numbers into our QuickBooks.
The only ones that clock in are, they clock in maintenance per se, or plowing and spreading, and it goes down.
She's talking about entering.
Who's
Oh,
entering?
no,
Into this-
Dennis Shahani.
I started
Yeah.
entering in June.
Okay,
I thought you meant
Prior to June.
time clock wise.
yeah. So this is something that we can correct in the new year just by selecting the subcategories intentionally.
Yes.
And there's a couple of places where, it kind of makes you look like, what's going on here with these subcategories?
There's a lot of miscellaneous, and I made her go through and get rid of all the miscellaneous. I'm not a miscellaneous fan. There shouldn't be any miscellaneous at all, so I'll go back to taking care of it.
355.01, public utilities. This used to say PERDA/public utilities. If it's 0, it's not 0 your year-end estimate. So it was 0 at, when this was initially released. What is that?
What's part of?
Your 355.01.
Public utilities.
Public utilities. Where's that? Where's that income coming from?
I need to look at the older budget to figure out what that is.
Okay, that's reasonable. It's really hard to sit at the table and know what the breakdown of any of these line items are off the top of your head, especially the more obscure ones that might only come in once a year. And you haven't even been doing it for a whole year, so that makes total sense.
Thank you.
And the alcoholic beverages underneath are the license fees, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the public utilities, is that a license fee also?
No, that would be a new one.
Hmm?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that would be.
Well, obviously, there's a check in and a check out on it.
$400, right?
Yeah, $450, that's what I'm seeing here.
That was the budget from, projected budget from, that was done in 2018. This number was entered as the budget.
I understand that, but
It didn't have anything, so there's nothing.
yeah.
You have to go back to see what the check was written 2 years ago.
It's sort of like that other chick. Yeah, the one she left one time, yeah.
And just a note to correct the foreign fire issue, your 2019 budget was $11,000 in that line item, but your income in your 2020 budget is 16, so it's actually 16 that's missing off of your expenses, right?
Well, the foreign fire tax is a liquid amount, you never know what you're gonna get.
And it comes in and goes out.
But it's the same amount.
No.
No,
It's not the same
No,
amount
it's a-
on
Changes
income
every year.
and
It's
expense.
it's a different amount each year.
No,
each
that's
year.
not my question. My
Yeah.
question is, whatever comes in is the
Goes
same
out.
amount that goes out.
Yes.
Right, so your income line item and your expense line item
Should
should
jive.
match, no
Yeah.
matter what number you put in there.
Correct.
Yeah, because you're basically giving that to the Relief Association.
It's a sum zero to the township itself,
Yeah.
but if you don't put the numbers in the same, then it just messes up the
Right.
rest of your numbers,
Right.
right?
Which was at the end of October when we got that check. Do you
Yeah.
remember?
Well, in September. you would-
September?
Yeah.
On the expense side, 432.1, your snow and ice labor. I have a note that, in 17, that number was 13,000. In 18, that number was 12,000. And in 19, it's actually 14,500. So why would we keep the budget at 10,000 when our track record shows us that we're not gonna make that number? We're not likely to make that number based on the last, 3 years' history.
Rachel, that's 432.10.
Well, it's actually now a combination of 432.10 and the new item of 432.11
Overtime.
overtime.
Yeah, so now she's cut it all, she's banked it all out and pulled it all out and
Right.
separated it
It's
even
so
more.
when you're comparing it to the old budget numbers, it'd be the combination
Yeah.
of the two. It's only listed as one line item. But your track record is 13, 12, and 14 and a half, but we're budgeting.
Oh, the thing
It's
is,
well
you're
enough.
also, if you take the whole thing, though, you're still budgeting more. Doesn't matter whether you're using snow and ice or labor. So I think if you take it, I would take it from the whole bottom line.
In other words, the
44, and
materials?
she bumped it up to 46.
Not on the materials, no.
Yeah, because we ended up being short then last year. Well, we'll see what happens, but it's gonna be close probably.
Well,
Take the
according
whole
to this,
total.
your projection is that you're gonna be over at 52,000 in expenses at a
Correct.
46.5 budget in that area.
Oh, I see what she took it that way. Gotcha. Gotcha. I
But
don't
I'm
know
talking about
bottom
just the
number.
labor
You're right.
side.
I don't know. I like it better when it's all budgeted as one instead of breaking everything down. It makes
Yeah.
it much more easier to
Yeah, yeah,
catch, yeah,
but it takes more work on the part of the staff for sure
to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I know I'm jumping around, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Income 301.40, delinquent real estate taxes.
Mhm.
The average of the last 3 years is 14,900.
What I did is, that's how I took that, is I took the total of the tax, I banked on a 96%, which is usually usually what it, how the tax was.
Okay.
Took 96% and then put the budget in that way to put the back taxes in, thinking that we're gonna be 4%
Okay.
for back taxes. Or 6%.
I know you're gonna talk about hospitalization separately. On your budget for secretary's salary, and I don't have the line item in front of me, I'm sorry, the number. It was cut to 50%, and I understand where you're going with doing that. My question is, with the number that it's cut at, is that based on the office hours for the year? Is that based on the office hours plus the evening meetings? What is that what does that allow at that number?
405.12.
No, there for a half a year, we had both Viola and Shahana. So I thought that they would probably have started with just the same one, and then I think she probably cut it in half, thinking that it was now gonna be just her salary and that life.
Is that a salaried position or hourly?
No, it's just an hourly position.
Thank you.
So that's kind of my question is, does that
Yeah.
count the regular office hours plus the evening hours?
Yes, it's all the hours.
It's all the
Yeah.
hours, okay. We're cutting the government building insurance line item by half. How did we do that?
Where, yeah.
So, my first set of notes, I didn't do all of the line item numbers.
409.
Yeah, 409.000.
Government building insurance, which I presume is this building and the building behind.
So that's a
Yeah.
great thing, that the expense for this year was
That
half.
was
How
how we
did
did
we,
that.
how do we manage that?
Shawna?
The insurances are split this time. There are other insurances.
Oh, she broke it down even more probably. Did you, because you get your insurance, you get your workman's comp, you get it all on the same bill?
Yes, those are split.
So then she broke it out more.
So the premium for the buildings is $25.99.
99.
And the government building, other, could be any of those,
That
Line items,
miscellaneous
'cause it's
thing that we
just-
don't like,
yeah.
yeah.
Our social security and Medicare withholdings line item, which is, I know, at the end, 481.10. We are spending half as much in secretary salary as we did last year, but we're not decreasing our matching withholdings. So that's one place that we should be able to recoup a little bit of savings towards our expense issue. And our PA retirement contribution is listed here as half of what it was. What's the rationale behind dropping that budget? And why did it go down so much for an expense?
That's 483.
Well, if you're part-time, do you guys get it? Did you
No.
used to have full-timers?
No, it's full time.
Just Jerry.
Just
Our
Jerry?
budget was 9,000, now it's down to, we only spent 4,400 this year, so it's 4,400 for next year. I'm just,
Assuming that the budget was too high last year? I don't know.
I'd say it was too high last year.
Yeah. Workman's comp is going up, obviously.
Hold on, she's reading.
yeah, I'm looking for it.
Yeah,
That's okay.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, so there's a large deficit there. And what is the board,
Well, I'm hoping, I've seen a few of the things of the deficit, and I'm hoping that a few places that you're not gonna see it was in the building, the personnel and doing the labor around the building, that was one of them that we can drive down. The other one is, I'm hoping, is insurances that can be driven down. And last but not least,
250, I think. It's a couple of years.
The solicitor's number was never expected to be that big, but that was from, and I don't know if we can just, sorry about that.
That was a good one,
What
Tony.
did he say?
When in doubt, blame the lawyer.
Yes. So I don't know if we can figure out if that can be readjusted downwards or not.
Did you do the math on the hospitalization? I haven't done that.
No, but it would be substantial.
Yeah. it certainly would.
That would be a good portion of it, absolutely.
So, what is it now, 38,000?
Yes.
39,000.
Budgeted at 40
And when I
for the
looked,
year.
they didn't have this
Why
last
goes up?
time. It just came out. They didn't used to have a municipal one with the Obama thing. They didn't have anything that would go together. So that is huge.
That's great, and also will
I'm
allow.
hoping they have one for hardware stores. I could really use something like this.
I don't know that PSATs does,
Yeah.
but, yeah, so I know you wanna talk about that in executive session, because it's a personnel issue. And I can pull out some stuff and do the math, but what are you going to do in terms of finalizing a budget? Because you have to re-advertise now if it's a substantial change, which I would think with the expenses being higher, well, I guess if you can get the income
If we
up,
get
then
that
you can
income.
get it adjusted, so
Some
it's
of it,
not, but.
I don't think it'd be too much, there's not too much. If you get the income up on that one, the county tax, the transfer tax, and you can drive down a couple of things a little bit, I think we can come to the middle real quick. Nothing too hard.
So I guess the solicitor, Tony, is this something that needs to be finalized and adopted at a separate meeting because we don't have an actual
It would
adjustment?
have to be adopted at a special meeting. It does need to be adopted before December 31st. I don't know if some of these line items, or one of the line items that Rachel mentioned, is it definitely in excess of the 10% of the aggregate budget, because the aggregate budget is for
Expenses was 428.
428,636, so it would be in excess of 10% of the budget.
What is that one? Which one's?
Highway
That would be
construction.
the highway construction.
That's the liquid fuel money.
Yeah.
Right, but the
That was right.
expense isn't showing on the budget.
The 50,000,
No, 78,000.
78,000.
Well, the 78,000 is your 2019 spending, but it's your 2020 number that drives whether you can adopt a budget today or whether you have to re-advertise. Yes, Tony?
I have additional questions when you're done, so.
I'll defer to you.
No,
Go right
you
ahead.
keep on going until you're done, and then,
That's quite all right. I could use a few minutes to organize.
Guess you didn't see that one coming, huh?
No, I didn't do that. I apologize.
Yes, Don, is there anything where you're thinking about this? Okay. Yes, Don?
thank you. 414.313, planning consultant. I know that we have an Act 530 revision coming up, and apparently we haven't spent very much on outside planners. But I can't see that, given the fact that we do have various planning revisions coming up, that $430 is an adequate amount to have on the budget, right?
I questioned that too, and I saw 5,000 down here. Is that correct, Shawna? 5,000 was allocated to the planning commission? Yes?
Yes,
Okay, it was through a miscellaneous though, is that correct?
correct.
Because I did ask her about that. Okay, so there was 5,000 allocated to the planning commission for your next budget. That was one of the things I did ask about, because I didn't see it, and she showed it to me here, which is where, Shawna?
414, planning and zoning other.
Oh, yeah, 5,000.
Is that what P,
2020 budget, yep,
is that
5,000.
P and Z is?
Uh,
414.414.
I'm sorry, Don, 414.
414.
414.
And then it's
Point
414.
Oh,
Point 414 is a new item.
It's show, yeah, and it's showing, 2020.
$522.
No, but I want
No,
more.
excuse,
No,
It's hearing
yeah,
expense.
one more, it says $5,324.
Right underneath that one, Don, it's 5324.
Yeah,
okay.
Is
But
that
that
correct,
is,
John?
That's a
is that
hearing
P
expense.
and
The
Z?
522 is hearing expense.
Planning and zoning other.
yeah, that's what I see, planning and zoning other. And the other reason is
I
because,
asked that question last week.
yeah, well, I was looking at it tonight, and I'm going, where is that? And I
When,
pulled it out here.
when this thing gets revised, this budget gets revised, can we put planning and zoning so that we don't have that same question that we do about PERDA, which apparently we don't know what that is either? So is that where a planning consultant's fees would come from?
Yes.
All right, given that that is the case, where did our planning consultant fees for doing these build-outs get billed into this budget that was spent this year? Because apparently that person was engaged twice, if I remember right.
It's in that other line.
That
item,
other line.
Yeah.
I got a breakdown on
5324.
that.
You do?
I got a breakdown on it, but that's not the only one. If you're talking about Nancy Sarsenello, that was $3,400.
And where is that?
That is in that other planning and zoning other.
Good.
And there was actually something that I didn't understand that I was gonna follow up asking about. The other check that was in that line item said C.S. Davidson, and it was sub-labeled computer software.
That's the software we have. It's the permit manager.
Permit manager software. Okay. So is that an annual subscription?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we know then that of that $5,000, only $3,400 is even available to put towards the planning and zoning consultant.
No, 300.
Well, wait a minute, why is that money being pulled out of there anyway? That's the software you
That
said.
should be in computers, that should be.
Yeah, that shouldn't be pulled out of there.
Your
That should be
computer
pulled
line
out of
item is
office.
separately way over budget.
Because that helps with zoning. You can see all the zoning areas and stuff using that software. That's why it was included to the zoning.
Okay. So that please, what is it, 3,300 then? For the
$3,400.
And in which we allocated 2,500.
Yeah.
So then that P and Z lot, 414.414 is gonna decrease by 2,500 for next year?
Penny's the expert on this, I'll let her answer.
These be only
No,
1,800.
it was 1,800 for Davidson. What is it? That's what I thought it was.
That's close to 3,400.
No, she's saying 3,400 is left, it would actually be 3,200.
How much is that software?
There are updates on, and what he does is
Huh?
whenever the county gets changes for, somebody's own house or GIS data comes out,
Right.
he comes in once a year, I think it's $1,800. They come in and they update all the properties, changes everything, so if you purchase 10 properties, it updates all the properties that were previously in our computer.
Okay, but is that the same thing that she's talking about?
That's, yes.
Yes.
The software.
So it's not 2,500, it's 1,800?
I believe it's 1,800
Roughly.
is what his maintenance thing is.
Okay,
Don has another question for you, Penny.
414.415, emergency management, a new item. What is that about?
It's the constable.
How is that emergency management? Emergency management would be dealing, I would think, dealing with fires and other kinds of emergencies, not hiring a security person.
So we'll move it to personnel then.
I'm making suggestions, I'm just asking a question. All right, same one, 414.427, solid waste collection / disposal. What would that be about for $270?
County waste.
I'm sorry?
County waste or recycling
Recycling?
And garbage.
and garbage.
Well, recycling, don't we make money or we don't?
No.
No, no one makes money with that.
Where's we do get money from Planet Aid?
Yes.
Is that shown on income somewhere?
That should be $1,000 a year income.
Okay.
Planet Aid.
Well, I don't know who's taking notes up there, but,
I am.
okay.
I think that is line item 342. Is it rents and royalties?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
But
probably.
it's being reduced from.
Shouldn't be reduced, like, because that's a steady $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's $500 every 6 months.
So now,
But our year-end estimate is only $125.
$5.
Is that a mistake, do we know?
Should be, yes. Maybe we haven't got our second check, but I know we got one in June for $500.
For the Plan Bs, right?
Yes.
And this was through October, or in October, so it should have been posted there in, at least
And Plan B.
in that first category.
And we should have
It's
had,
not.
And you have to find out if
Is there any other category that would be in?
and then we,
I put it somewhere.
so, if ready for the next piece? If 414427, again, the 270, is that what we pay to have our trash picked up here? And that just formally wasn't broken out, I guess.
I think we paid $27 a month that we picked up,
That's pretty reasonable.
or $21 a month or something like that.
That's very reasonable.
Very formal.
404.31, I know we touched on this, and I know it's somewhat of a sensitive issue, but how did we go from an actual expense of under 14,000 in 2017, and we're up to pretty close to 32,000 now? Why is our legal expenses
What number are you
No,
on
it's
now?
404.31?
The solicitor?
Yeah, we're at under 14,000 in 2017. 2 years later, we're up to almost 32,000, and I'm
I
asking,
don't know. Is there
Why is
too much,
that?
or we have too many meetings, or he raised his price?
is there,
Sure.
well,
So
the-
hopefully next year it won't be so high. I'd like to
and
budget
the other
that.
thing is, I understand that all right-to-know requests are being referred to the solicitor. Isn't there somebody on staff who's supposed to be looking at right-to-know requests? Because I gotta believe, and this is nothing against Tony as a person, because I do like him, but isn't there somebody on staff? It's a course that you take to be, I think Vi, you actually did it.
For Vi and I met, actually, John.
Well, there you go. But anyway,
I
there
thought-
should,
2002.
Wasn't that on your list to take a course?
We had that on the list. Yep, well, our list.
Still have to do that this year.
You're still the tax collector.
Okay.
So 42 years as,
two of them. But my point should be that, my point being that somebody on staff or one of the supervisors should be taking that course, because obviously he has to charge for doing that. I have no idea how many have been done, you know?
And I have suggested that.
Pardon?
I have made that suggestion.
Yes. And we have.
Oh,
other things.
well, I'm just asking, because like I say, nothing against you as an individual,
No,
but
and it doesn't
you're
involve
going
you,
from
no matter-
14 to 32 is quite a jump.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Penny just said she would take the course.
Well, you need to have the right to know officer take the course.
No.
Sure.
Okay, Shahana will take the course then.
I will.
Who is the right to know officer?
John.
Okay. So since all of it, what all has been going on that's required our solicitor, I mean, I haven't been going to meetings, but that's required our solicitor in such excess? Or what accounts for the big jump? Because I imagine attending the same meetings as always. Can't be that many right-to-know requests that would jump from one to the
Oh,
other.
you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Well, how many have there been?
I have no idea. Every time I turn around, there's.
He must have done a good job. He kept us out of legal trouble.
Yeah.
Well, we're supposed to have a record out here of how many, of all the right-to-know requests. So it shouldn't be a fairly easy matter to take a look at, but that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more.
Yes, go ahead.
On the income side. We used to have line item 392.00 state pension aid.
Yep.
And that's not on here anymore.
Nope.
Why do we not have state pension aid coming in anymore? It looks
That's
like
an
we didn't
excellent
get any in
question.
18 or 19.
What line are you on?
It's
not on here.
on the old budget,
Oh.
on the budget from the beginning of the year, it showed from prior years, 392.00 state aid pension. And it used to be, like it shows in 17, we got $3,800 in income. We had a budget of $3,900 in 2018. And I know that there was actually an increase in state pension aid, I read in a PSAT article, but we have nothing. So what happened to our state pension aid? Do we know?
No, I entered it in the foreign fire insurance. That's why it became 16,000.
Why would that be in foreign fire insurance?
It came from Auditor General, so.
Yeah, but it should have been for fire.
No, the aid that I think Rachel is talking about is the aid we get from PSAT's pension fund, which I think we did have a separate line item for, because the foreign fire fund is totally separate. Now, it's possible you didn't get one for 2019 yet.
Well, she just said she put it in the foreign fire, so then we did. So that would be about the right amount.
What's this one right here?
Which one's that here?
It's 483.
483 would be on the expense side.
Right,
Yeah.
That would be the retirement contribution.
right.
Okay. But what Rachel is referencing is what would come in from PSATs.
That would be just about the right amount that she
At
had.
4,800.
Which should be on the income side.
It is on the income side.
Okay,
Yeah, but it's under foreign fire.
Tucked in 355.
okay.
So that's why it went from $11,000 to
$16,000.
$16,000.
Right. Right, because that's a separate, that's total separate. It does come from the Auditor General, the appropriation, but one is the municipal retirement plan, and the other is the foreign fire tax.
So your retirement expense is still listed on your budget. So that means that you're not, that foreign fire that we thought was short by 16 was actually only short by 11 in terms of the expense. That's good. There's a gap, I know it's 5,000.
Right.
Every penny counts.
Yeah.
I bet you like that saying, right?
Penny for your
A general question, not specific to the budget, but given the fact that there's obviously a number of things that need to be corrected, and Tony would be one to address this. Does it make sense to have some kind of a workshop meeting between
Well,
now and
actually-
budget adoption so that we can make sure when we get to budget adoption that we're doing it the right way?
This is, you two, whatever you want to do.
You have to
This
advertise.
is your budget, this is yours next year.
Not very long.
It's fine next year.
That's
So
what I've
now-
been saying.
But it has to be done, because it has to be done. in
That'll be
one
done by
week.
December 31st.
Well, I understand it has to be done by December
And we gotta
31st,
advertise
but
it.
We have
We-
to advertise at one time, you have to advertise your meeting, and you have to advertise your budget at one time.
well, what I'm saying is, so that
So
when the
there's no-
budget
You have to
adoption.
make your revision,
Can we go make the revisions,
you have to
and we have
make
to
the
redo
revision,
it?
you have to advertise it once and pick your date for a special meeting to adopt it before December 31st.
Which is supposed to be
And the-
available for review for 20 days, which we
But
don't
no,
have, right?
No. Once it's available for review, all you have to do is make your revisions and advertise it one time that's being adopted at a meeting.
Okay.
Once it's available for public review, you've met that requirement.
We
If
did
there's
this 3
revisions
years
in
ago.
excess of 10% on any line item,
Christmas.
which there will be, you have to make your revisions. And once the revisions are completed, you may advertise a special meeting at which to adopt it. obviously it's gonna be here for public inspection, revisions will be here. Right.
I believe it was 3 years ago we went through this. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago.
4
We had
years
a
ago.
meeting after Christmas, and that was to adopt the budget.
Well, you
Now-
could have a special meeting for a
Yeah.
singular purpose.
I forget what the
Right.
problem was, but you had the chair at the time, and you come up with that, after Christmas.
But
Well,
what,
I will
I
note,
remember the problem.
Yeah, you were
The problem
here.
was the math.
yeah,
Yeah,
The
you
problem
were
there
was
was
the
a
math
math
because
issue.
the budget wasn't being done on a computer.
I will note that because there was a municipal election this year, that during the month of January, you can amend the budget.
So you can accept the budget and then amend the budget
I
like
don't think
on
you can
January
accept this.
6th? No, you can't accept this.
It's too far apart.
Yeah.
all right, again, I'm going back to what I was saying, because I'm not clear on what you're saying. I truly believe, Penny, you took excellent notes, because I've been seeing you write it down. But does there need to be a meeting before the budget adoption meeting, so that we're certain that we
Well, the
picked up
revisions- the
No,
all
I'm
the
gonna use
revisions?
my notes and Rachel's notes.
As long as you two are working
Yeah.
together, it's
Right, the
gonna happen.
revisions have
Oh,
to be done.
absolutely.
Right,
And then it can be advertised and available for inspection, but that's gotta be, you have to have some type of a workshop meeting in which to do that.
but that's what I'm saying, you need a workshop meeting in addition to a budget adoption.
Right.
What he's saying is that the body has
Unless
to
you're gonna do
accept
it
the
tonight.
revised version
Right.
in advance of advertising the
Correct.
revised version.
Correct.
Right, so effectively,
Give us much
two
time.
advertised meetings. Yeah.
So you would have to do 23rd workshop, 30th, about.
Or 31st.
Oh, I won't be here that day.
Because next Monday's the 23rd, and the following Monday's the 30th.
Right. And you do have to advertise it one time. Don't forget, Christmas is on Wednesday.
So it's gotta be in that dispatch, huh?
So
You
you'll
know,
actually.
you're not limited to the dispatch, you can advertise
Okay.
in publications that have a shorter length of time.
Buckle record.
That would give you the shortest length of time, is to put it in a daily.
Right.
But if they set the dates today, can't they advertise this week?
Yes.
Can advertise for
workshop
both.
and-
30th?
Right,
Yeah.
and that-
Absolutely.
that's what they're gonna have to do after this discussion's over. But you are gonna have to have the revised budget available for inspection, once the act goes in.
And these meetings require a motion, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to have a workshop, and then you're going to have a regular meeting. What's the dates?
23rd and 30th.
You're gonna have a workshop meeting and then a special meeting
Yeah.
To adopt.
to adopt the budget.
To adopt the
30th.
budget.
Okay.
Your motion should be,
For a workshop on the 23rd, and the regular
no,
meeting.
your motion should be for a workshop on the 23rd
Yeah.
to revise the budget in accordance with the suggestions made at the public hearing of the budget.
And a special meeting on whatever date you choose to
For
adopt it.
adoption of it.
And Tony, so this is no confusion. After the 23rd, that's when it has to be available for public view.
Correct.
Okay. Doesn't have to be.
Right.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we make 2 meetings. One will be a workshop on December 23rd for a workshop to revise the budget because of public objections to the budget, and then also
Comments.
comments. Well, objections, comments, still the same. And also a regular meeting on the 30th.
Special meeting on the 30th.
Yeah,
For
well,
purposes of adopting the budget,
there you go.
the revised, the amended budget, I'm sorry.
For the amended budget on the 30th.
So I propose the planning board meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'm sorry.
Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. There's your 2 meetings. At least that's it.
One more question in reference to the budget. I'm a little concerned because Rachel's question about the total of the reserve that's held by the township was just brushed over. And I think that it's only fair that the residents of the township know what the reserve is. The township, for many years, always told at a public meeting what the reserve amount was and what the reserve was being used for. And I don't seem to be hearing that discussion now, and I know that for many years, the township held about $250,000 in reserve as a running course.
It's about 80,000 because and it was out for public because there was a loader bought out of reserves, and that was brought up in this board. I wasn't here at that meeting, but a loader was bought, and then a truck was paid off rather than have that second loan, which I thought that was a good idea. But it's probably around 80,000 from what I understand. So that's and it's supposed to carry you until March, until taxes come in. And they often say if you have 1/4 of the budget in reserve, you're in good shape because it carries that first 2 months before the taxes come in. You're not really a bank. You don't want to have 500,000-600,000 because then you're showing the taxpayers that you really don't need that money. But anytime you don't have a second loan, and I remember this, I don't even know if I was at the meeting, but anytime you have 2 or 3 loans out, that's a bad thing. I think you got 1 loan on the equipment now, is that correct? Got 1 loan rather than, but yet there's 3 brand new pieces. So I know where some of the reserves went for equipment.
Well, so we've been living off our reserves for the last few years while raising taxes.
Yeah. Well, actually, you lived on for what, you said 13 years, I remember when I first came here? Because reserves, you live on them sometimes. And then they build back up. Let's just say a piece of big property sold, there goes your reserves, you get $200,000 and it builds it back up, and then you start all over again rather than raise taxes. Because raising taxes is not where you want to go. Even if, like this budget, I know Penny, she's going to work the budget, so you're within the budget, so you're not raising taxes. Because raising taxes is always the wrong way to go. It doesn't help anybody on the outside. You'd rather have them spending it in a store, in Milford, or wherever they spend it, rather than giving it to the taxman. And I know that's how you feel about taxes too. So I'm sure Penny will do a fine job.
I think Kevin's question though was how much is in the reserve account? Is that the question?
I think it was a pretty basic question. Yes.
It was a basic question, but I wanted to give a good answer on
And
where.
my suggestion would be that maybe we have available as part of the treasurer's report in the future,
Absolutely.
you have an income statement as to what the balance on hand is.
There you go.
Gary, from what you were saying though, our reserve then is too low at this point. Is that
Well,
right?
it's probably too low because, some money was spent on equipment and whatnot. It's too low for me. It's livable, it's very livable. But I can foresee in the future, I think things in this township are going to actually go the reverse way. And it's only just my opinion. I'm looking at this property, I thought he would have gave up on it, but he obviously isn't because he went to the planning commission. Now, he can't do anything until he buys that property, but we all know that's a very expensive piece of property. You don't buy that for $50,000. So if that property were to be bought, okay, there goes that reserve pile way back up to the other side. So, like I said, if that were to happen next door, there goes your reserves, now that just goes back into the capital funds, we call it, okay?
So,
But that's just my opinion.
so I think though the question is how much is in the reserve, and I think
In the future, they can put that out there.
what I think the board should consider is having the treasurer, as part of the treasurer's report, give a balance on hand
There you go.
for each of the accounts.
I don't recall it before, but that's a good idea. It is a good idea. Okay, any more on the 2020 budget? No? Okay, we got to move on here. Planning board meeting for December 30th.
I will not be available for December 30th.
But we just made a meeting for December 30th.
Okay,
So that kind of can't happen because you'd have 2 unless they want to move their times,
Right.
which I don't know if they want to do that because they work during the day.
Yeah, we get something.
Yeah, so they were just doing that because your other one falls on Christmas, is that correct?
right, we look
Yeah.
for days and that was the only thing that they were going to do.
Yeah, I understand it.
I'll let
I
the
really do.
members know.
Yeah, there's just nothing can be done at this point in time. Supervisors meeting schedule for 2020, do you have that?
I made that, but Penny wanted to add something to
I
it,
wanted
so
to
I
see
didn't.
if a good idea would be to start doing like workshops, the first meeting of the month, maybe do like a 6:30 meeting, go over anything.
Fine with me.
So does that have to be advertised, Tony?
Did you check?
No, you simply say when you
We're only being
advertise.
courteous because she's gonna be here.
I don't
When
know
you-
how
when-
far away you work, is it hard?
No, I can get it by 6 o'clock, so 6:30 will be fine.
When
I
you
just feel we didn't need that
advertise-
much, but just to go over everything, because
Yeah.
it just seems
Well, that would
like.
probably help me, because I'm sure I'm gonna have questions
Yeah.
that you don't want to necessarily
Yeah,
waste
have
time at
the
public meeting, or
yeah.
waste Tony's time.
Yeah.
What I suggest is that when you do your meeting
First
schedule,
meeting, yeah.
well, you can do it for all
Yeah.
meetings. You can say workshop to be held 1/2 hour before. You can do it. Remember, when you announce the workshop, it's open. It can't be public, it's a vote to the public, but they can't participate.
Okay.
So what's gonna happen is you can either do it here, or you can do it over in your office. But anybody who wants to come in can come in and listen.
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have to be sitting right here. We
No, you can do it in the office.
Do it in the office.
What most townships do is they sit in their office, if they have a little table, they sit around the table, and anybody who wants to come in can come in, but
Okay.
it's simply the workshop. They don't
Yeah.
allow participation in workshops.
Okay, so you don't have the dates and the times.
Well,
that
she
you-
does have it all printed out.
She's got it all
I just
printed
wanted
out.
to make sure that that half an
Are
hour
you
in
still
front
gonna
of.
do 2 meetings a month?
First and third.
Yes.
And
Is it first and third?
Yes.
That's it, that's it, that's it.
And workshops will be at 6:30 now,
Yes.
at the, only on the first.
On the first meeting of the
first
month.
meeting of the month.
okay? Well, we have to make a motion
Motion
on this
for
if
that.
she's gonna advertise this.
Before you make your motion, why not have the workshop at both meetings?
Fine.
Okay, so that way you have, but, and if you don't do
At
it, you
least
don't do it?
at least now, I mean, you don't have to do it, but
Okay.
at least in the beginning, why
Okay.
not utilize that half hour to
Okay.
kind of
You
hash
don't have
things
to
out?
have necessarily anything going on at a particular
Mhm.
meeting, but if you do, or if you have questions, that'd be the time to. It's
Right,
already
for
advertised.
example, what we do in other townships is that the agenda is there, the supervisors come in, and they go over the agenda items during the workshop. And if there's any discussion regarding agenda items, they have it at that time. If there's questions, they ask the questions, and then they go out to the public meeting and they take their official action.
Okay?
So make a motion, that we need to make a motion for that, though. right?
Yeah, absolutely, you gotta make a
that
motion.
We're gonna have workshops every meeting, half an hour before the first meeting. What?
Every meeting.
Every meeting.
Every meeting.
Every meeting. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so you can advertise that, gentlemen. Supervisors meeting scheduled for 2020, we just did that. Auditors meeting for 2020.
The January 7th.
Did you advertise your reorganization?
Not yet.
You need to authorize advertisement of reorganization.
I'll make a motion that we have the secretary advertise our reorganization meeting for January
Six.
6th at 7 PM.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Auditors meeting, January 7th.
You need a motion?
Do we have enough?
No, it should be January 7th,
Need a
because
motion
the
now.
6th is our
There's
reorganization
three.
meeting. Right, there's
Make a
the
motion.
7th.
I'll make a motion that the auditors reorganization meeting be held on January 7th at 7 PM in the Township building.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Before you vote, aren't you also authorizing advertising that meeting for that date and time?
That's what I just made the motion
Yeah,
for.
Oh, I
he
didn't hear
said-
you
he
say,
said
I heard you set
advertise
the
it.
meeting, I didn't hear you say to advertise it as well.
It's right.
Sorry.
You seconded it?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So you're gonna advertise for that too?
Yeah.
Okay. Resolution for public participation,
I'd like to ask the board to approve of that. I think that the newly elected supervisor should have an opportunity to review it.
Okay.
Okay,
Here.
Should I table that?
yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Donations to the Milford Fire Company, ambulance Westfall Fire Company.
I'll make a motion that we do our yearly donations to the Milford Fire Department, the Milford Ambulance, and the Westfall Fire Department.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Okay, public comment period number 2. Yes, Phyllis?
I have a question. Tony, didn't you suggest, you were making a suggestion to the supervisors that they that they modify who can participate at?
We just tabled that.
No, my suggestion was that there be adopted a public participation resolution similar to what was done a month and a half or a month ago in Milford Borough, where you set a time limit, 3 minutes, and that there's some ground rules as far as public participation is concerned.
God, who can?
And that priority be given to township residents, and then not to eliminate public participation from non-township residents, but just that township residents who have their hand up will get called on first.
Since this is under public participation, I would suggest that the supervisors, when they consider this, can it, because, for example, the questions which were brought up in this budget hearing by Rachel are very important, obviously would take more than 3 minutes. Just a thought.
No, Don, that's just during the public participation period. Anytime during the public hearing, it's not limiting it.
Okay.
And this was the budget public
But
hearing.
it's specifically for the public participation
Correct.
periods, not
Correct. For
not
public
discussion.
participation
Not
period,
discussion on other
not
things.
public hearings, right. Public hearings would be set by the chair on the date of the hearing.
public hearings or ordinary discussion. You're
Or
just
discussion regarding, or discussion.
regarding township business. What you're trying to do is prevent somebody from walking in and holding forth for 3 hours on First Amendment issues.
For 2 hours and 45 minutes.
So,
Right.
Lisa.
Hey, good one. Any other public comment? Yes, name please?
Erica Burnett, Westfall Township. I just want to say I agree with Don Quick about not limiting it, but I guess that's during hearing. But I'm curious why it's the solicitor requesting this. I would think something like that would be something the supervisors would bring up and not the solicitor.
All I did, Erica, was I informed the board that 2 other organizations that I'm involved with had done it. They have different ones, and I gave them to them for their review.
Okay.
That's what I did.
One other thing, I attended the hearing today of Mr. Stroyan and Mr. Willis, and during that hearing, I can't quote you, but you made a comment as to, Mr. Stroyan's letter stirring up the dust and bringing people out here and slowing things down and impeding the process.
I never used the word impeding the process.
You didn't say that.
Well, I didn't say I was quoting you. I said you kind of gave a
If you're not going
general.
to quote me, then don't quote me.
Okay, well, to a certain extent, you said that
My argument is a
people
matter of
coming out
public
were
record. If you'd like
slowing
to have it
things
transcribed
down,
and
and
reviewed, you may review it.
I don't
okay,
think we need to get snarky.
yeah, I'm just,
No, she's quoting something I never
I
said.
s-
That's
well-
She said she wasn't
She didn't
quoting.
say quote.
Okay,
She was
but then
giving
she
her
went ahead and
first
quoted it
sentence.
anyway
Suggesting.
for
Can we let
anyone
her
to
finish
see.
her thought? Can we
Whoa,
let her
whoa, whoa.
finish her thought?
Okay.
Okay.
so, I guess I was just wondering if those were your words or if those were the thoughts of your client. And again, I'm just bringing up the
Your
point
client.
that,
Who's his client?
you.
No,
Supervisors.
all of us.
Okay, well, all the
All of
supervisors.
us. We're all of
Okay.
his clients.
So then I'm asking Mr. Magnata if those were his words on that subject, or if
Whenever
that was the.
an argument is conducted in court, it's always the attorney's words.
Okay. So I felt today, I'd just like to say that I felt today that you thought that having more people come out to these meetings was maybe not such a good thing because it had slowed things down. That was just my impression.
Again, I
Now-
take exception to what you're saying because it's, number one, it's not what I said. Number two, it is not my opinion.
Okay.
Well, would you care to correct and tell us what you said?
Well, what I indicated was that the meetings had become quite lengthier,
Right.
and
Well,
that the
you're answering
amendment
to her,
process,
so-
and that the amendment process had never gotten beyond the initial amendment that was revised, so that we are still theoretically in this amendment process, although I think we put that to rest with Mrs. Lure's motion a couple months ago to send it back to the planning commission. But for over a year and a half, we've been dealing with a revision for a mixed use that's not allowed in our zoning. I would say that under the circumstances, we have to continue to deal with that, but our zoning ordinance does not allow for mixed uses. And you can take that as indicating that we have a zoning ordinance that does not allow for what is now a very common use, almost universally in this country.
So what happens when there's no exception, no allowance for it, Sean? Why don't we enlighten them? If I come in and I want to put a mixed use in, and there is no such mixed use, what happens?
What I've been saying for the last 2 years, it's automatic.
It's automatic, they come in, that guy could have built at any time, but he was gracious enough not to do that, because he didn't want to avert the process that was going on in this township. That's why he kept coming back. And I'm very happy with him not doing that, because I had known all along that he could have done that at any time, just said, I'm going to build. And we could not have stopped him. Is that correct, Sean?
I
So-
guess you're
I
kind
am
of
real
getting
happy
off
about that.
my comment was just to say that I got the feeling today during the hearing that it was a problem having the public involved in this process, that it had, slowed things down, and now here we are trying to limit the comment period. And so
Again, I'm going to take exception to that statement.
I'll cut myself off
The
there.
public
I'm sorry you're
participation
taking.
resolution was presented to the board for their review.
And I just want to dovetail on what you said, Gary Fine. While it is true that a use not provided for can get automatically approved, they weren't just looking for a use that wasn't provided for. They were looking for a density bonus that they couldn't get through that process.
We're
And
looking
so-
for what's called a curative.
What are you talking about? We don't have anything on it, which means if he drops an application, we could be in trouble.
Correct.
I'm
Which
like,
means our
oh,
density
this
that
is
was
really,
listed
this is
would
great.
not- Would not have been in effect anyway, because we don't have a use for 2 different uses in our
Well, it would be,
It would
And
still
that's
have
where
to be.
we should be in front of it and making a change.
Well,
However,
Should have been in front of it 20 years ago.
it doesn't mean that we need to do the density that they were requesting.
correct, no. And to put it in perspective, it's a use not provided for, which would be a special exception, which would go to the zoning hearing board and would be a hearing in front of the zoning hearing board with much less rigid standards than it would be in front of the board of supervisors with a zoning amendment.
With the other
The
zoning
standards would
amendment.
only be, does it essentially alter the character of the neighborhood? Is there traffic congestion? Is there something that would adversely affect the valuation of other people's property in the neighborhood? Those are the standards on special exception review, which quite frankly, I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah,
Glad he didn't go that route.
exactly. Me too. Any other on public comment, because we gotta go, you're gonna call for an executive session.
Personnel?
Yes, and we're going to invite Rachel back for this, just so you know,
Thank you.
solicitor, because she needs to be informed on this one. Executive session for personnel, correct?
Yes.
Okay. She's heading over to the desk as we speak.
I'm
Oh,
going
this
to
is-
sign it and
Love.
Okay.
I need to send you this.
I'll sign it and give it right to Gary.
What's that?
the VU response.
Yep. So,
Penny,
yes, honey.
sign this, please, so we can get this out.
Okay.
That's the VUM part.
I guess we didn't get to this. We'll just flip to the back of the application.
Yes, there's that.
We
Okay.
never did do that. did
I don't
we?
think you have to explain because,
Okay.
well, yeah, you might have to.
Well, yeah, you have to announce
Okay.
that you were in executive session for personnel.
We were in executive
stole my
session for the personnel,
I didn't
for
steal your pen.
insurance,
I did.
and
Well, I took the other
we will
one,
probably be
so
moving
that's-
forward with a different company, but we have some more work to do, and hopefully substantially lower our rates.
Very good. Okay. I make a motion, we pay the bills and adjourn.
I'll second that.
There you go, done. Love it.
Now, I did want to
Now,
tell
you're
the
gonna video
board,
conference
I
this?
will not be here.